Welcome to Dwellings, a podcast from the City of San Jose Housing Department, where we talk with thought leaders about ending homelessness, building affordable housing, and key housing policies. I'm Jeff Scott, and I'll be your host for Season 5 of Dwellings. On today's episode, I'm joined by Lester Fontecha, Director of Real Estate at EAH Housing. We'll be going over what affordable housing is, how to get started with new projects, financial models for affordable housing, and target populations. And with that, welcome Lester. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Lester Fontecha. I've been in the business with affordable housing for 20 years. I've been with EAH since 2008. So majority of my time has been with EAH Housing. I've been a resident manager, regional, and now the director for real estate management.
Lester, what exactly does it mean to be the Director of Real Estate for EAH?
It's a quick oversee with the regions of the different properties across the Bay Area, including the North Bay near the Marin County, all the way down to LA. My portfolio specifically is just in the South Bay, a majority in San Jose, and a touch in the Morgan Hill and 5 in Gilroy.
And so are you helping to manage properties, or are you helping to get deals done for new projects, or maybe a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I would say a good 80% is help the regionals and managers manage the property and the community. And the other part is helping asset management and development create new deals, both in the Bay Area as well as in the Central Valley.
What are some of the common kind of issues or concerns that you're looking out for and your team is looking out for as you manage these properties?
Trying to get the word out. I think that's the hardest part. Everyone has heard of affordable housing. They just don't know how to connect the two or where to go. Besides EH, there are other management companies that have affordable housing, but getting the word out, explain to them how to qualify is just not there. There's just like a missing gap. And sometimes that gap is a thin line.
So Lester, can you give our audience a sense of the size of the buildings that you're putting up these days, maybe perhaps in terms of the number of units or the number of people you're able to house in a typical new affordable housing building?
So the range lately has been between 50 units to 100. The makeup of the bedroom size is between studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. We do see 3 bedrooms, but that's in the rare case. That's a little bit more on the outskirts. But in downtown San Jose, we've been seeing a lot more of the studios, 1s and 2s, between 50 units to 100 units.
If you're anywhere near the downtown core, I assume then that you're building up maybe multiple stories in these
Correct.
buildings?
High rise. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So anywhere from what, like 6 to 10 stories? Would that be a typical?
It's more like 4 to 5.
What exactly is affordable housing? We hear that phrase thrown around a lot. Can you just help us understand generally what do we mean when we say affordable housing?
They're meant for individuals or families whose income, and when I mean income, I mean the growth, is below the median income for a specific area. So it's not like, hey, here's California, here's the set rent. It's literally by locality. A majority of the time, it's per county. Okay, so every county has their own specific median income, and below that, anyone that falls below that, typically 60% or lower below that, they qualify for affordable housing, and the rent matches their rent income or their income level.
Got it. So what you're saying is that both the income of the tenants and the rent that is charged have caps.
Correct.
My question is, are there different levels or different tiers of affordability?
There definitely is. I've seen it as low as 15% or median income. The max I've seen for tax credit is at 60. Anything above that, in theory, they should be okay with paying their rents as is in terms of the market rent. But the main focus is really on the 60% and below. A majority of them who are considered very, very low are within the 30% threshold AMI. And it also depends on if we're talking about families, seniors, or those who require permanent supportive housing.
Do many of the properties in your portfolio have residents who use vouchers to either pay all or some of their rent, or do you guys not deal with vouchers at your properties?
We love vouchers. We vouchers are our friends. The good thing about vouchers is that it gives prospects and holders options outside of affordable housing. So they can go to a market rent place and still live there and have the same amenities as someone who makes a little bit more money. What we see with vouchers is that there's different ranges of vouchers or different types of vouchers. There's tenant-based vouchers where they hold their voucher and they can carry it to any of the properties. And there's project-based vouchers where it stays with the community. And those have other restrictions. Sometimes it's in order to get that voucher, it's either through a referral basis or they have to stay on our wait list to acquire it.
What we're talking about, just to be clear for our audience, what we're talking about with you in affordable housing, that is not the same thing as rent controlled or rent stabilized housing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Because in San Jose, when we have rent stabilization, we limit how much a landlord can increase the rent, but we don't set the rent. We don't tell the landlord what they have to start the rent at. We just simply place caps on how much they're allowed to increase it by. But if I'm
Correct.
understanding you correctly, in affordable housing, it's a little bit different where there are state mandates or regional mandates that limit the specific rent that is allowed to be charged.
Correct. So I think the major two is the limits of the rents has been placed already upon us, affordable housing. Rent stabilization, I mean, it's typically to ensure that there's not a dramatic excessive rent hike, you know, predator landlords back in the days. So
Sure.
it's to ensure that it's fair and it's reasonable. Since our rents already clocked in that hey, you cannot go higher than this, we're already locked in with the max amount.
Each year, do your rents potentially change or potentially increase by small amounts because of small changes in the area median income from year to year?
Yes. Yes, it's definitely it varies from county to county. Santa Clara County tends to have a upward swing depending on the data to get and know that it's an area median income. So they remove the high highs, remove the low lows, and what's in the middle is what sets the tone for the rents. And often, I think in the last 6 years, it's constantly gone up gradually.
When someone wants to apply for affordable housing at one of your properties,
Mhm.
can you walk us through that process? What are the steps that a person has to do in order to apply to live in affordable housing?
So we're going to assume that they got called in or they were referred to our property and there's a wait list. Once they're in, there's an application process. And part of the process is they have to have the understanding of the resident selection criteria, which gives a restriction on whether or not that's a property for them. So if it's a senior housing and there's an age limitation, families can't go in there. Right. So they have to understand the type of affordable housing they're going into. We're going to assume that they meet that basic criteria. Then there's typically a background review in terms of, credit check, criminal background check. And the last thing is the income requirements. That's mandated by the policies of affordable housing, specifically through both either tax credit or HUD, sometimes both. And they will tell you how much money or what the income level a household can make. And it's not the net; it's how much they make, regardless of their expense. Quite often, I think the misconception is, well, I can't afford market rent because I have car payments, I have insurance, I have medical bills. What I have left is this for rent. We look at the gross amount because that is what sets the standards for the rent. And if they qualify for it, they can easily move in. The hard part is everyone calculates the hours, but no one understands that overtime may push them over the income limit. So the income limit is connected to the rent amount of qualifications.
Do you or your team review the income of your residents each year to ensure that they remain in compliance? Is that how it works?
Correct. We review it every year. And the other part we do, the reason why one is for compliance. The other part is to ensure that we monitor the rent burden of everyone. I think one of the things we have to be mindful is Just because we're in affordable housing doesn't mean there isn't a rent burden. There's always going to be some type of rent burden. If someone happens to lose their job, the burden increases. So we review the income level at an annual basis and analyze what the rent burden is to see what the new rent increase should be.
And are most of your properties in your portfolio, both in San Jose and elsewhere, are they usually full? Do you usually have wait lists, or are there vacancies fairly often?
They're typically full unless there is an upcoming lease up that will create a migration from one affordable housing to the next. In most cases, they'll stay because most locations it's favorable to their to schooling, medical needs, groceries. But at times you will see a migrate only when new lease ups occur in affordable housing.
When you use the phrase lease up, are you talking about a new affordable building coming online and then
A new affordable, yep, correct. A new affordable development happening popping online, and I think in San Jose we see close to 3 or 4 a year, which
okay.
is awesome.
So then the new building comes online, then all of a sudden there's 100 new units that have to be leased up.
Correct.
I
And
see.
there's a vacuum; it gets filled somewhere.
You mentioned before a moment ago that some of your properties are tailored to different audiences. You mentioned seniors and families. Does that then affect the amenities that you try to build into that property?
Yes, it's tailored very specifically to the demographics. For senior housing, it wouldn't be wise to put a swimming pool there, but it would be definitely beneficial if we had a library, maybe a theater room, an exercise room for families, if possible, if the funding's there, a childcare center, a computer center. It's very created. It's detailed specifically for the demographics. Our hopes is that they make it their home. We try to make it inviting as much as possible.
Do most residents at your properties look at their living situation as temporary or transitory? Or are they expecting that they're just going to be going through fairly quickly? Or do a lot of your residents look at this and say, this is going to be my home for many years?
That's a good one. It depends. We have some properties where it's a start to something better. It's their first place where they called home. It's their first place of independence. And they're trying to get a feel of where they fit in this social climate. You know, is San Jose a place for them to stay at? Let affordable housing decide whether I should stay here or move on. And when they do move on, it's either because their employment changed, or best scenario, their employment changed for the better. They saved up and they can buy housing. They can buy a house, a townhouse in San Jose. For seniors, I would have to say it's the sense of permanency. They're like they don't want to be with their children. They want to be by their own, but they can't afford to live in a big house anymore. They cut back and they're like, we're good with just having a 2 bedroom and and have my final lives at affordable housing, comfortably with like-minded people.
Does EAH or do your partners offer things like case management or other supportive services that might help a formerly homeless person adjust to having an apartment and adjust to kind of living in a community and changing their lives in the way that's going to be necessary to hold on to that housing?
Oh, case management is a plus, especially if the project has it. One of the things that case management does is, opens the door of what haven't had before. Because many times it's just about being exposed to, exposed to having a stable place so they can do other things. I think once you stabilize a household, it's easier for both the children and the parent to move forward. A stabilized household for a child increases their ability to study. There's not that stress level in the vibe of the house saying, "Hey, I'm going to be homeless." No, no, it's you're here. You can study, take your time. In terms of what we do with the parents, we provide further education on how to write a resume, how to balance the books, how to manage your finance, how to save, and with hopes that they can move out. Our goal overall is to ensure that with new family members, can they move out and contribute more back to the city? Can they buy a house, a townhome? Can they upgrade from affordable housing to maybe a condo? Those are those small things is what we like to see. And we do all our part to provide services and case management so they can be exposed to that possibility, or at least to that door saying, hey, we're opening it for you. All you got to do is just step right through.
So, how do you go about trying to find deals that work, trying to find property for new projects that work in a region where land is so expensive and materials and labor are also expensive?
Um, it's about collaborating. One of the things I've seen is a collaboration, not only with the city, but a collaboration with different agencies coming together, looking for the same goals. You know, I think there was a trend on housing seniors before, and then there was a trend, and all of a sudden we see senior housing pop up, and then there was a trend to helping families, and then all these family properties popped up, and then there was now a push for permanent supportive housing to help lessen the homeless factors in San Jose. I think it's collaborating with many different lenders, working with the city to maybe come up with some soft loans that's amicable to the property so that there's a positive cash flow. The goal is a win-win, and a lot of times it's trying to figure out that win-win so that all parties have something at the end.
Are you seeing a particular trend right now in our region?
I think last year I saw a lot of seniors. This year I'm seeing a lot of supportive housing developments start and close out today or this year. I think that's a good trend. Next year, I think the trend's still the same. I think we all have the same voice that we want to reduce homelessness. And many of that starts with just PSH properties, that added case management so that we can get people out through the doors and see different pathways. And I think that'll be a trend for a while until that pathway is clear for everyone.
Are you seeing in our region changes in zoning laws and land use policies that are maybe loosening up some opportunities and allowing some housing to be built that perhaps 10, 20 years ago would not have been possible?
Oddly enough, yes. It's I like the opening up of it. I think it needs to be distributed a little bit further across the districts, but it's way more than before. I've never seen so many affordable housing pop up in locations where I thought nothing would ever pop up there. And that's with my competitors from John Stewart, Eden Housing, on Midpen, even USA Properties. I'm seeing them build houses and like high density properties in locations where I thought it's just a dead zone. And they're making something dead to something beautiful. And I think that's the partnership and the mindset of the city of San Jose. And it's pretty awesome.
Do you see well built, well constructed apartment buildings for low income residents as actually being beneficial to many of the neighborhoods where they're located?
Yeah, I think one of the things, I mean, there's all these key terms that people like to use, economic stability, workforce stability, environmental sustainability, reduction of homelessness. But I think one of the things that people forget that these high density affordable housing, it actually fosters social inclusion. I think that's one of the things that we forget in this mixture of San Jose, that it provides, housing to a diverse social economic background, which we might not see in different neighborhoods, and adding this touch of spice and color helps expand who we are. And I think we just need to be a little bit more open to understanding that it's about fostering social inclusion more than anything else, I think.
When EAH is preparing to move forward with a new project, a new construction project, is there a lot of work done to reach out to the community, to have neighborhood meetings, to engage with the people who are already living in the area, to try to make your properties, your proposed properties, fit in with what the community is looking for?
Engagement is high. I think getting the buy-in from the community is foremost, number one. It's the community support that ensures, the success of a property. And we spend quite some time. It's not just, hey, one year we're going to do it, then next year we build it. I think it's years of planting the seed, getting the buy-ins, getting the recommendations of what they want to see, and I think getting that community involvement helps secure the success of creating affordable housing.
Over the last, say, 10 years,
Mhm.
15 years, have you seen a trend towards greater acceptance of affordable housing in neighborhoods by the existing neighbors, or are you seeing resistance increase? Or perhaps over the last 10, 15 years, you haven't really seen much of a change in the attitude of the neighbors?
There's been a quick shift in neighbors that are affluent. Remarkably, I think the last 6 years, there's been a hard shift on wanting more of these affordable housings. I think the generation before us are saying that they want to keep the community close. The driving far away from us, the walking away from San Jose has greater impact on that. So it's been widely more accepted. I think also the quality of the building itself is leading to the acceptance. It's no longer the Detroit blocks or Baltimore. It's San Jose. San Jose has really created a different view of it. It's beautifying it in a simple terms. It's erasing the thoughts, and I think as we increase the generations and that goes further, it might be the only thing that they'll want. You know, it's Silicon Valley.
I definitely see in my work a generational shift in the attitude, and it sounds like you're seeing a little bit of that as well. Lester, were there other things you wanted to share with our audience? Anything I haven't asked you about that you'd like to add?
The only thing I want to put out there is really the push for more affordable housing. We just don't have enough. I know that there are times where there are statements that shelters are great, but I think the difference between temporary and permanency plays a big factor. And once you create a permanent sense of home, great things occur. You know, transitional is okay, but permanency and sense of home is something we really need to push further.
Well, Lester, thanks so much for sharing your expertise and your experience with affordable housing. We really appreciate it. And it was great to have you on today.
Thank you. This was awesome.
Thanks so much, Lester, for joining me on today's episode. Thanks for listening to Dwellings, the City of San Jose Housing Department podcast. Our theme music is Speed City, composed and performed by Attain Charles. Thanks to San Jose Jazz for letting us use their music. If you like the show, please subscribe and share with your friends and family. If you're looking for more ways to help address housing and homelessness issues in San Jose, please check out the show notes. You can follow the Housing Department on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SJ City Housing. And if you have questions or comments about today's episode, please send them to housingcoms@sanjoseca.gov. The artwork on our website was created by Chelsea Palacio. Dwellings is produced by me, Jeff Scott, and Jose Chavez of the Housing Department.